You might think there are only 12 weapons in Xenoblade Chronicles X. 6 class lines with both a melee and ranged weapon each, meaning there are 12 different weapon options to choose from, right? But what if I told you there was a super secret 13th weapon that can be unlocked in this game? That's right, there exists this super secret ranged weapon called the multigun, of which only one exists in the entire game, the Delta Bliss, which you can craft at the AM terminal after Yelv's last Affinity mission. This is the only multigun in the entire game and can be equipped regardless of class or requirements. I'm sure this hidden weapon must be secretly super overpowered, right? After all, they wouldn't hide something really bad behind side content that was originally DLC in the original game, right? Well, in this video, we'll be taking a look at this multigun and seeing if it's all that, or if it's just a meme. As always, if you enjoy guide content like this on Xenoblade Chronicles X and want to see other guides and more Xenoblade content in general, please do be sure to subscribe to the channel because it does help me out so much. I'm getting very close to 100,000 subscribers and would really love to hit that milestone soon, and every little bit helps. Let's get started. So, if you were to examine this multigun, it's always going to have the same 3 traits on it. First up is going to be Destabilizer, which reduces your weapon stability, which means you have a higher maximum and minimum damage values, which does not really matter much at all to your total DPS or anything like that, so kind of a useless trait. Then you have Ether Attack Plus. This is not necessarily bad because the attribute of the weapon is Ether, and that is also additionally very nice. It's, of course, you can actually take advantage of Core Crusher if you have an Ether attribute weapon, right? So having this 22% additional added to damage boost to your Ether damage does sound pretty appealing. And then finally, we have Opening Art Damage Up. Will just boost the damage of your opening art by 35%. Also, not very useful considering you're probably going to be ramping up Overdrive before you really get a lot of sources of damage, so definitely not going to be the most useful traits here, unfortunately, but like I said, it is an Ether weapon, so maybe it still can be pretty useful here, since of course it has access to Core Crusher, which you can really take advantage of, which is the strongest skill in the game, right? Well, let's take a look at the arts that it has available to it. If you were to go to the art screen with the multigun equipped, you have access to 4 arts. They should automatically be maxed out as soon as you get the multigun, and those are going to be Cannon Barrel, Missile Barrel, Sniper Barrel, and Boost Barrel. So Cannon Barrel is your only TP art, and it is unfortunately not a very powerful art. It is only a single hit with 1000% hit scaling, and it seems to be for the purpose of toppling the enemy more than doing damage. But of course it does have the tertiary cooldown bonus of doing more damage as well, and does deal 200% more damage in a ranged combo, so maybe it could potentially be used for damage. But then you'll notice that despite being an ether-based weapon, this art is locked to the gravity attribute, meaning it is going to do gravity damage no matter what, meaning you can't even take advantage of your ether attack up on the weapon itself or any of the strong damage boosts that exclusively affect ether like Core Crusher. So that makes the TP art not very worth using in most situations. Next up we have Missile Barrel, and you're going to notice another very similar problem here. This is locked to the electric attribute no matter what. And this, of course, means it's still not going to get any benefit out of being an ether-based weapon or having ether attack up, and it's still not going to be able to get any benefit out of Core Crusher or anything like that. So you kind of have a lot of parts here that just kind of don't align with each other very well. They don't really have good synergy at all. This one can also apply the shock effect if the enemy isn't immune to shock, which can be somewhat useful if you're able to actually get that shock effect off, since it can combo with Sniper Barrel, which will inflict stun if you are targeting a shocked enemy with Sniper Barrel. But as a lot of the strongest tyrants are unfortunately immune to shock, you're not likely to get a lot of benefit out of this either, unfortunately. But it can do 150% more damage when you have an aura active at the very least. It is only 4 hits and only 300% hit scaling on it, which means you're only going to have 1200% total hit scaling, and it is locked to that electric element, like I said, which doesn't synergize with the weapon too well. But I guess if you do want to have a secondary damaging option, it is something at the very least. Sniper Barrel is probably going to be the main arch that you want to try to use for any type of damage with this weapon, which is kind of sad because it's only a singular hit and 800% hit scaling. I mean, it's not going to be the strongest art in the world, and it also doesn't have a really useful bonus effect for increasing your damage any further. But if you want to do any type of damage with this or take advantage of the ether damage that the weapon has at all, this is going to be the only real option you have available to you. And fortunately, it is a lower cooldown art, 12 seconds, which in Overdrive means it's going to be pretty drastically reduced, meaning you'll be able to use this fairly often at the very least. Regardless, though, this being your primary damage option is definitely not very good, unfortunately. And finally, we have Boost Barrel. This will reduce secondary cooldown, reduce auto attack intervals, and boost potential. Reducing secondary cooldown is obviously a very good effect, and in a vacuum, boosting potential can be good. The problem with boosting potential here is that, well, your one TP art is not going to be a very strong art because it's locked to the gravity element. It's only 1000% hit scaling. This means that even with Boost Barrel, you're not likely to get a lot of damage out of this art, especially compared to just using Sniper Barrel, which functions as a ranged attack art that scales off your ranged attack rather than your potential. The reduced secondary cooldown is nice, but you're much better off using an aura from your melee weapon that has much more useful effects, such as full specs, which boost your range attack and your potential, and also ether resistance a little bit as well, meaning it's going to be a much more useful aura if you want to try to get any type of damage out of the multigun. Additionally, the multigun has the problem where a lot of the windup on these arts is very slow. They kind of have a lot of lag. Cannon barrel in particular, despite being a topple art, doesn't really work very well for topple locking strategies because it has a long cast time and it also has a travel time. It's a projectile attack that has to land before it actually topples the enemy. This makes it quite a bit more annoying to actually take advantage of compared to some of the other topple arts. It would be one thing if the stun applied no matter what and you didn't need the shock effect if you had sniper barrel, because you could just topple the enemy and then just kind of keep spamming your sniper barrel on the enemy to keep it stun locked basically forever just by re-inflicting and reapplying the stun so the topple duration never runs out. But the fact that you only can do that if the enemy gets shocked means if the enemy is actually immune to shock, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that strategy at all. And considering shock also wears off very, very quickly if you don't have something like an extend shock skill, you still wouldn't really be able to rely on that strategy, unfortunately. Regardless, though, you do have the option to kind of topple lock with this weapon, which is probably the only real thing it really has going for it. And we can at least attempt to do some damage with sniper barrel and just kind of show off how it works, because, yeah, as you probably guessed, this weapon is unfortunately a meme and not very good. But, fortunately, this is Xenoblade Chronicles X, and we can make anything work, so we're going to try to show off how the multigun can be used in this video, just to try to see if we can actually make it work against the strongest tyrants in the entire game. And to that effect, I am also running the knife, since it's the best supporting weapon for ranged attack damage, since we have access to full specs, which boost our ranged attack as an aura, Black Butterfly, which can inflict ether resistance down, Smooth Recovery, which is just a really, really useful green art for overdrive duration and overdrive count, and Screamer just as a purple art so we can get our TP back over the sleep, because we don't really need the sleep for the strategy we're going to be doing in this. The skill setup is going to be about what you expect as well, just using Core Crusher to take advantage of the ether damage bonus, Boosted Bullets to boost our ranged attack, Combo Gunner to boost our damage when we trigger ranged combos, Secondary Accelerator to reduce our secondary cooldowns, and then of course Long Topple so we can get more topple duration when we actually topple enemies with our multigun and focus on our topple locking multigun, which is of course very, very good. To this effect, I'm also running a knife that has the Appendage Crusher on it, while also running 3 Appendage Crusher traits, as you might imagine. And then, of course, I'm running ranged attack up in all 3 slots of my Delta Bliss to boost my ranged attack up as much as possible, up to 1232. I have a Warrior's Eye Patch to get the 5th and final Appendage Crusher, so I'm doing as much damage to the enemy as possible. And then I'm just boosting my ranged attack as much as I can in all of my other slots here. Ranged attack on everything I can possibly get it on. The left and right arm can come with the stronger ranged attack traits that you can get from enemy drops. And the shop gear for the torso and legs is going to be the only way to get ranged attack as a trait on them, so that's what I'm running for those. And then in every single slot, just so I can spam some of my arts more often, my sniper barrel more often, I'm using Aura Rapid Cooldown, which reduces all art cooldown by 20% when we have an Aura active. So we'll definitely be taking advantage of that as well, to try to do anything here at the very least. So as you can imagine, I think the only way we're going to get the multigun to work at all is just a topple locking strategy here. So I'm going to be focused on just kind of immediately activating Overdrive and then using the topple art instantly. Now, once again, this topple art is projectile and travel slow, so it takes a while for it to actually land where it's going to land. So I activate Smooth Recovery a few times just to kind of boost the debuff resistance reduction that we have, and also just to kind of make sure that we can use our arts a bit more often, since I won't have the I have the Aura Rapid Cooldown active now, since I was able to activate my Aura in between that section here. Smooth Recovery will give me a lot of duration and a lot of overdrive count if I can just spam it in between these topples here to just kind of start up my duration spam here. As you can see, I get 8 count every time I use it after a green art, and I get 4 count when I just use it in general. So it's very nice just kind of spam this art, and I get a lot of duration. We're already over 99 seconds at this point, which is very, very nice to have. Unfortunately, I do get knocked back when I get when I stand up here, which is a little unfortunate since his body kind of overlapped with me. But fortunately, not really a huge deal. I'm still able to get the topple off, and no one dies for it. So the topple takes forever to actually land this time, which is a little annoying since I was really far away when I used it. But not really a big deal. But now that I've got that, I can just kind of activate my aura, activate Black Butterfly to make sure that I've got the ether resistance down as well. And at this point, I'm going to try to stand closer to his leg if I can, and then focus on trying to do as much damage as I can with the sniper barrel. But I'm going to restore my TP with Screamer, because it's my only way to restore TP with this current setup outside of just using Tensifiers, but I didn't want to cheat some. So we're going to mainly focus on just using Sniper Barrel when I have opportunities between topples. It would be really nice if I actually had access to that stun, but I can't shock Gradivis, so I can't really take advantage of that. So I'm just trying to use Sniper Barrel every time it comes off of tertiary cooldown there. Doesn't take too long, and then just throwing in the topple art after about 2 Sniper Barrels or so. That seems to be about the proper time most of the time. And I'm trying to stand closer to the leg that I am targeting just so I can get topples off a little bit easier without having to worry too much. So you can see that the general damage of Sniper Barrel, assuming we have Black Butterfly on and assume everything is going well, assuming we have our aura active, is okay. It's about 4 million or so per hit, which is not the worst thing in the world. Looks like it was about 5 million there. But it's definitely a very convoluted setup. The wind-up time for a lot of these arts is very, very annoying. And it just ends up being not as useful in a lot of situations just compared to basically any other weapon in the entire game. And it's definitely very, very convoluted. This is definitely the worst weapon to try to topple lock with just because Cannon Barrel is just that really annoying travel time AoE range dart. So it ends up being not as useful because of that. Like, you can focus on maybe a more sleep-based strategy just by focusing on, like, gentle approach and feather touch, so you don't wake him up with any of your arts. Maybe you could just do that instead. But you have to use some of your skill slots for that, and you'd have even less damage on Sniper Barrel, but it honestly might be worth it just to kind of just spam Sniper Barrel more often, and not have to worry about your party members if you're doing that. The only problem with that is you'd have to have a way to build overdrive count that way, so that would be the one major issue there. You probably could run overdrive count up, maybe even focus on overdrive gain TP instead of aura rapid cooldown if you did that. So I'm sure there are other ways to try to make the multi-gun work here, but as you can see, it's still not going to be the biggest or highest source of damage, unfortunately. Even with everything kind of aligning, and even without how much damage that I'm able to do when I can actually get good Sniper Barrels, it doesn't end up working, unfortunately. Now, unfortunately, it does end up activating his aura. I wasn't able to get the topple off fast enough, or it might have missed or something like that when he stood up here. So I'm now doing even less damage. And I'm also in danger of dying since I don't really have any other defensive options. All I really have is Smooth Recovery, which can grant evasion up, and can be somewhat useful for dodging some of his attacks. And we're going to be having to rely on that the rest of the fight here. And while I do get lucky enough that it does end up working, it is definitely not pretty. So, multi-gun, unfortunately, as you can see, is definitely a bit of a meme. Definitely going to be the worst damage in the entire game out of any weapon. And unfortunately, it's just going to be the weakest weapon in the entire game in general. Honestly, it probably should have gone in its own lowest tier below even the Javelin. I feel bad for the Javelin now compared to where I put it, but, you know, the multi-gun, is kind of novel and neat that it does exist. I just wish they were going to have a hidden weapon like this that it ended up being better, because as of right now, it does end up feeling fairly useless for the most part, with its only real niche being the fact that it's the only ether weapon from Factory 1.21, meaning it's the only way to get past the 39 million damage cap on the leaderboard there. Since, of course, ether damage is able to actually go past that cap, since Core Crusher actually increases the damage cap for some reason. So if there's any niche it does have that going for it, but unfortunately outside of that, the multi-gun is not very useful, and it needs a very hyper-specific setup for that to work too. So is the multi-gun worth using on your adventures through Mira? Well, not really, but it is kind of funny, and it is kind of neat that it does exist. I do wish there were some other new weapons that the game had available to it in the Definitive Edition, or they added some other options to you, but I think I'm kind of satisfied with the options that we do have at the very least. The game is still a lot of fun, and I think with the 12 weapon types and all the vastly different builds you can create with those 12 weapon types, that it doesn't end up mattering too much. There's still so much variety and so much you can do in this game, and that is always going to be one of the things that I do appreciate about Xenoblade Chronicles X. I think that is going to cover it for this video, though. I hope you learned something about Xenoblade X today. Maybe learned about the multi-gun's existence and about how to use it if you really, really want to try to make it work. I'm sure there'll be a lot of meme videos about it in the future as well, because it really is just that funny of a weapon. If you did enjoy, please do be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Please look forward to my future videos. I should have the party member tier list out either tomorrow or Sunday, so please do look forward to that as well. And please look forward to anything else that I create on Xenoblade Chronicles X. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you back here soon.